What's up, guys, and welcome back to another edition of Competitive Edge Podcast. So today, Drew Hanlen, you guys are going to see his competitive edge right out of the gate. Not just his, but the people that he's worked with as an NBA skills coach. You got to imagine some of the people, I'm looking at the list you worked with, Jayson Tatum and Joel Embiid, like MVP, and all these people that you work with, the elite of the elite. But not to mention, you were also a college basketball player, and I know we'll touch on that story today. You got your new book coming out. We were talking about there, Stop Bullshitting Yourself. And it was really a gift back, as we were talking about before the show. Guys, this isn't just some book that, looking to make money that Drew said, let me go find another revenue stream. This is really a gift. And it's today, as you listen to this, we're going to unpack some of that. And what I loved is some of the unseen hours you talk about, the things that are in an athlete's mindset that I believe all of us, regardless of what level you're at, maybe you weren't a D1 player or a pro or any of that, but at some point you got to compete in life. And so today's conversation with Drew, we're going to unpack that. We're going to talk about some of the things that he has seen in his own journey, and then also coaching some of the most elite. So, Drew, welcome to the show.
Yeah, appreciate this. I look forward to these conversations. I always love being able to share not only what the best athletes and entrepreneurs do, but also just, things that'll help everybody win. And I think that's where we both share, that passion for helping people out. And like you mentioned earlier, I mean, that's why I wrote the book. It was basically like, how do I give all the secret sauce, if you will, that these high performers use to everyday people so that they can also start winning, what I call the deep games, the battles that are taking place in their head and their heart that they might not even know they're playing. So I'm super excited about this.
Love that. Well, let's go back to some of your journey, because some people may not know. College basketball player, and I was reading your story, and I'm looking at that, Belmont and some of these things, and you talked about some of the struggles, and one of those that we share is, one of those is being a soccer goalkeeper and even a basketball player early is like height was not on my side. Being below 6 feet, not ideal for basketball or a goalkeeper in soccer. So I want you to, let's just talk about that story a little bit of how you made it that far, one, and then what some of that journey taught you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was one of those people that, as a basketball enthusiast, somebody that loved, basketball growing up, being a 5'11", average athlete was not the hand that I would have picked if I got to pick, the perfect hand. But, I'm a big believer in every hand has a chance to be a winner if you play it the right way. And I was a relentless worker. I made a ton of sacrifices. I used to wake up at 4:59 a.m. I'd shoot 1,000 shots before school every day in high school. I'd meet my high school principal at the school, at the gym at 5:15 a.m. every single day. I gave up sweets at 12 years old, believe it or not. No soda, no ice cream, no candy. I did it as a month-long challenge. And then I remember my mom being like, why don't you do 2 months? And then after that, I made a commitment. I'm not going to eat sweets, nothing, until I'm done playing basketball, whenever the ball stops bouncing. And so for me, that ended up being at 22 years old after we got knocked out of the NCAA tournament my senior year. So I went my entire teenage years without eating any sweets, no soda, no cake, no ice cream, another separator. And then another one, I'm 35 years old and still have never tasted alcohol in my life. I've been offered $10,000 for one shot at a Vegas nightclub from one of my clients. And I said no, just because I'm a big believer in, like, if you keep the promises that you say that you're going to do, if you keep the commitments, it just gives you this level of swagger, this level of confidence, this level of trust in yourself that anything is possible. And so that's really where the college basketball journey started for me. It was when I was 12, separating myself from everybody else that, wouldn't give up sweets to become a little bit better athlete. Now, was giving up sweets the secret to me playing college basketball? No, but it was being able to do the things I said I was going to do, which was the waking up early. It was the doing the extra workouts when it wasn't easy. It was when I wasn't athletic, hitting the weight room hard and gaining 30 pounds of muscle between my freshman and sophomore year in high school. And so those things led me to getting college scholarships. And, fortunately enough, I had a great experience at Belmont, in Nashville, and I got to play in some NCAA tournaments and play in some big time games that I'll forever be grateful for.
Dude, I love the journey and love you sharing that too. Because a lot of people listen to this, whether they've got kids that are going through that now. I know with us, having our 9, our son, he's 16, and one's about to be graduating, going off to college herself. And I look at that, and these things that we might call sacrifices or different decisions, different disciplines and commitments. I'd love to know your take on this. You look back on that now, right? 35, and you look back and like, okay, I gave up these things, sweets, ice cream, all these other things to get where I wanted to go. The question people want to know, man, was it worth it?
It's always worth it. And I always tell people, like, when people at the end of podcasts or shows say, hey, if you could tell your younger self one thing, what piece of advice would you give your younger self? And that's actually what I say. It'll all be worth it. Now, you never know what decisions and what actions ultimately drive the success that you get or don't get. But I just am a big believer in doing anything and everything you possibly can to give yourself the best chance. And so that's where I look at everything. I look at everything as, why not? And, there's a part in the book actually that I love, and it's basically rephrasing everything. And it's basically like will, and then you fill in the blank, whatever that action is, help me, and then fill in the blank of whatever you're trying to get to. And so will, giving up sweet, help me get college scholarships. The answer was yes, so I did it. Will drinking and partying help me get college scholarships? The answer was no, so I didn't. So I really think that when you start rephrasing things, it really helps you understand, it gives you clarity and helps you understand what will and won't get you closer to where you want to be. And I think that not enough people really think that their actions and decisions determine their outcome, but they do. I know that there are plenty of justifiable excuses of why you are where you are. I am very I have a big heart for people that experience trauma, as a child, that experience hardships as a youngster, that have went through, things that they can't control throughout their life. But I also am a big believer that, all those pains and all those past experiences can also build you up. It's like, man, if you got through all of that, imagine, now what can happen. And so I look at everything in an optimistic lens. And, I look at my lack of height, and instead of saying, wow, I was dealt a bad hand, I said, you know what? I was blessed with really, really big, work ethic. And I was blessed with a discipline and dedication that no one can have. And you just look at those positives instead of looking at the negatives. And I think that if more people did that, they would realize how much power they have to ultimately become the person they want to become and live the life they want to live. And that's what, both of us share and trying to pour into people is just get them to understand that if everything that they've done to this point has led them to where they are today, then everything they're doing now is going to lead them to where they are tomorrow. And if you don't like the trajectory of your life, you have the power to change it.
Hey guys, it's Brian here. I hope you are enjoying the show. By the way, if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur looking to grow your personal brand, make a bigger impact, maybe increase your leads and grow your revenue, let's help you get started today by connecting up with my friends over at the Brand Builders Group. You've heard me talk about them, but if you're new here, this is definitely the first step to get you started in turning your reputation into revenue. Head over to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey. Again, to set up your free brand call, go to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey to set up a free strategy call with one of the team at Brand Builders, and they will dive into your specific goals for how you want to grow your personal brand. I can't wait to hear how it goes. I love the framework you shared too, just going back to that, because Drew, as you're sharing that, I'm literally thinking about my own college experience. There were some of the guys on my team that didn't make it to the next level and didn't get to play or make it on, different kind of accolades within college because they were out drinking and partying and doing things. And you get that framework, it's like, is this action going to help me accomplish this goal? And I'm thinking through that. I'm like, I didn't know that, but at the time, that's what I was asking myself of going to that party, staying up late, going and having drinks and doing that. Was that going to help me continue to be a starter, continue to chase my dreams and all this stuff? I'm like, that was almost my framework. So as you share that, I just wanted to kind of reflect it back to you of like, dude, I think that's a winning mindset of anybody that's listening out there. When you put it through that filter, it's yes or no. And I love the way you shared it. And the second part to it you're going through is I actually think the height or whatever the disadvantage, maybe you're a slower athlete or like you said, like you had to put on muscle. I went through the same thing. Like freshman year, they're like, hey, these guys are bigger than your high school and club. Like we need you to stack on some muscle, get in the gym, work out with the football guys. And I never forget just thinking about this is like, had I not done that or had a coach that believed in me and cared in me and said, hey, go do this. This will help you get to the next level. It seems like that kind of became a competitive edge for you is by not having all the stereotypical prototype, body of the 6'5" or whatever it might be and perfectly built. You had to almost go tap into other areas of your mindset and your discipline. If somebody's listening to that out there, is there spots to start, right? Because I think we hear about mindset and we hear about you went and shot all these shots at like 5:15 in the morning, and like, where does somebody start to build that if they're listening to that today in their own life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in starter steps, which is what is the smallest action that you're actually going to take, even on the days you don't feel like it. And so, I have a great story in the book that talks about my dad. And my dad, I could not convince him to get healthy. He was, 6 foot, 310, 320 pounds. I don't know exactly the exact weight because he wouldn't even get on the scale. He's like, I'm going to tip the scale if I get it on, get on there. And we went to the Super Bowl, and I was with Gatorade, who was one of my sponsors at the time, and they gave us all these Letterman jackets. And I remember my dad was so proud because we were with the Manning family, and we were with all these big time Gatorade athletes, and he put on the jacket and he could not even close the jacket. And it was a 2XL, and they didn't have a 3XL. And so I was like, all right, let's make a goal. Let's just get you to the point where you can close that jacket. That still didn't drive him. And there was nothing I could do to convince him to get in shape. And so I remember when we landed, after the Super Bowl, we're in the driveway, and I was like, Pops, I said, do you realize that you lost your dad, my grandpa, a decade too soon because he did not reclaim his health? Every night when he had to, take a couple hard shots of whiskey and so that he could, put himself to sleep when he was aching in pains. Do you realize that cost him? That's why his liver failed. Do you realize that now your mom has went a decade without her soulmate because of his decisions and actions that he made not to reclaim his health? Do you realize that every time that it's Papa Dink's birthday and you have to go to his gravesite to celebrate with him instead of being able to give him a hug and celebrate with us, it's because of the decisions and actions he made? I said, do you realize that we are going to have to experience that same pain that you live with if you don't change? The next day was the first day that he walked outside the house. And I remember him giving me all these excuses. I don't know what program to do. I don't know, how far I should walk. I don't know. I said, just walk. I don't care if you walk down the street and come back. I don't care if you walk around the neighborhood and come back. I don't care if you walk around the town and come back. If you're feeling good, keep walking. If you're feeling bad, walk home. But just walk. Become a walker. My dad lost 90 pounds in that calendar year. And The thing I tell people all the time is you gotta basically connect with something. Connect with people, connect with something deeper instead of trying to convince them. And sometimes you got to connect with yourself instead of trying to convince yourself, because we can all go look in a mirror and say, we would love to have a better body. We can all look at our bank account and say, we would wish we had more financial flexibility. We can all look at, the parenting that we do and say, we wish our kids loved us a little more, or we were a little bit better version of a parent to our kids. But a lot of times those little gaps don't cause us enough pain to actually change. Those little gaps actually allow us to remain because we're like, it's not that bad. Our kid doesn't hate us. Our kid likes us. They don't love us. Our financial problem, we're not paycheck to paycheck. We have a little bit of a cushion. And then we look at, our bodies and we're like, I don't need a six pack anymore because I'm already married and I have somebody that loves me for who I am. And it's like, we don't realize that we're constantly settling for 60, 70, 80% of what we're capable of. And we don't realize that the confidence and the overall well-being that comes with actually performing at the highest level of your capabilities. And I think that's what, I keep trying to drive home in the book is like, there's always another level. And regardless if you're comfortable or not, you can be comfortable and you can love the life you're living while still pursuing more. Because I promise you, if somebody gave you a blank check for $1 million and said, there are no strings attached, no one dies, no one gets hurt, there's no, if this, then this, it's just you get $1 million, everyone would say yes. If somebody said, hey, here is a secret pill that you have to take and there's no side effects, absolutely none, it's bulletproof and you get the perfect body, you take it, But now if you say, hey, here are the things you have to do to get the exact same thing, the $1 million, the perfect body, the perfect relationship with your kids, now we're not willing to take those same steps because it's not a quick fix. It's not a quick, kind of action. And so that's the problem is people have to find things that actually drive action so they actually follow through with the commitments and promises they make to themselves.
This is so good. Like we could talk about this on. And I love what you shared because a couple things, if you were looking and we're, a few weeks in as we're recording this to the year and people have already fallen off statistically, we've already seen, that's there. And even today, man, at our gym, we normally have 20 people. It's kind of a CrossFit style. Like people come in, normally 20 people in the class. There was 10. I was like, oh man, Is it cold out? Did they give up on their goals? Something happened in their life, and you start to just create this, but like this is happening around us so often. And your point, the quick fixes people want. I would love to know your take on this is people that are kind of past that. They've started this journey. And I love what you said is like, I find myself, and I look back in seasons, like I just settled for good enough. Even last year, like I went and did the body fat test and all this stuff. And literally, Drew, I had one of my closest friends called me out. He's like, you think that's your best? And I was 15.5%. I'll just say what it is, right? Because I've shared it. And I was like, no, I don't think it's my best. He said, well, what are you going to do? And it wasn't until I really connected up and then I started putting the pieces and kind of this playbook together of this is why I want to do it. I want to do it by July 4th because pictures of the beach with my family. And I'm like,
yep.
And my 9-year-old was kind of grabbing at my stomach is what was really a trigger. And he's like, oh, Dad, like can't really see your abs and blah, blah, blah. And then the time 15-year-old, now 16's like, I got better abs than you, Dad. And as a competitor, like I just needed something to light the fire under my ass and go. What can people do if they're not sure today of like what that burn is or what that motivation for them? Is there a way that they can start to uncover it? Because mine kind of came unintentional. Let's be real. Like when they said those things, they triggered something in me, like that competitor that I was like, oh, hell no, this isn't how this is going to play out. How can people tap into it if they're not sure?
I think reverse engineer, like my biggest thing is I was like, what happens if at the end of your life, you got an iPad handed to you and they said, watch this. This is what your life could have been if you would have done all the things you should be doing right now. I just think about that moment all the time. And I also think about like, you literally asking yourself something that I ask at camps and clinics all the time. So I'm at these basketball camps and people like, your kids who, are younger, a lot of times middle school kids. And I say, raise your hand if you want to play college basketball. 95% of players raise their hand. Now I say, put your hands down. Second question, if you continue to work the exact way you're working, eat the exact way you're eating, sleep the exact way you're sleeping, doing the exact things you do, practicing the exact way you practice, how many of you think you'll get college scholarships and get to play college basketball? 2-3 hands go up out of 100. And I go, everyone else, if you had your hand up saying, I want this, and then you had your hand down, but I'm doing this to get that, just know you're letting yourself down. And that's what I would say is I think that people need to connect with that and be able to say like, this is the actual road I'm going on. And this is the road that I could be going, and look at the difference. And it's a no-brainer when you start comparing those two, And so there's a movie, I think it's called On Time or In Time, and it's Justin Timberlake, and it's basically you're trading, instead of money, you're trading time of your life. I always think about that. Like, imagine if you were getting ready to have like a McDonald's, Happy Meal or McDonald's, Big Mac meal. And instead of giving them, $10 or whatever it cost, imagine if you're like, here's 8 minutes of my life. Like, would you still eat that? And if you know that if you went down the street and ate a healthy meal, you actually got 2 minutes added to your life. Like, what decisions would you make if you instantly knew all the decisions, what they were doing for the long term? And I know it's not as simple as that. I know that one meal doesn't take off, but those little decisions add up. That's and right. So that's what I would say instead of just looking at it in a short term, look at it in a long term. Look at it like I told my dad, and this was, again, there's a lot more that goes into longevity and life expectancy and all that kind of stuff. But on average, every 5 pounds you're overweight, you lose 9 months of your life. That's just based on average. Now, that's taken away all other factors, which I know there's a lot of other factors. I don't want people to think it's a direct correlation. It's not. But on average, every 5 pounds you're overweight, you lose about 9 months of your life. And so I started doing the math for my dad, and I said, do you realize how much time you're actually losing? And he's like, wow, I never realized that. And so then that's, to me, what it is. It's even looking at it beyond yourself. Like, let's say somebody is comfortable financially. They're getting by. They're not thriving. It's like, what can you do to change the narrative of your family forever? You grew up the exact same way. You had the stress and the financial pressure, and your parents did. And that was one thing that they argued about. And you're going to give that same burden to your kids, and then they're going to pass it on. Like, be the one that breaks the chain. So I think there's a lot of things you can do to connect, but I do think that you have to find something that's bigger than you. And I also think you have to compare the versions of where you're headed and where you could be headed, and really, experience that difference and just be like, man, this is so much better than this, even though this is still good in a lot of cases.
You're sharing that. I often think about this, like my dad's a psychologist, right? So I was thinking about this. I learned how to do visualization young, right? I'm just thinking about as you're sharing this do you think people need to be able to visualize that better version or that elite version of themselves to be able to pursue that? Is that part of the process for you? Or when you're working with these all-stars and amazing athletes, do they need to be able to visualize it and see the dream sometimes before they can even pursue it?
You have to believe it can happen for it to happen. I really believe that, because I don't think you can relentlessly go all in unless you think that what you're going all in is possible. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where if somebody told you right now, hey, jump in the ocean and swim across the Atlantic, you're like, there's no chance that I'm making it to the other side. So you're not going to paddle like you would normally paddle. Whereas if somebody said, hey, jump in and just swim from this end to the other end of the pool, you're like, okay, I got that. And so I think there is a certain, belief that has to be there in order for you to actually, apply the pressure and apply the energy and effort that's required to get there. But sometimes that's very hard for people. Sometimes people don't, they see this big audacious goal instead of being able to break it down. And so another section of the book talks about a story with Brad Beal. Brad Beal was my first NBA client. I started working him out at 13 years old. And here's the book condensed version of it. Basically, I asked Brad one summer, I said, he was like, what's next? He had just been an all-star, an NBA all-star, and he knew that the Washington Wizards were not in a position where they could contend for an NBA championship. It was very clear they were in a rebuilding phase, and so he needed something to motivate himself. And so I said, do you think you could average 30 points a game? And he was like, bro, he's like, only one player, James Harden, had averaged 30 points the previous season.
Yeah.
In his lifetime, in Brad's lifetime, since he was born, there was 11 players that had averaged 30 points a game in a season. That was like Kobe Bryant. Like Shaquille O'Neal didn't ever average 30 points a game, believe it or not, for a season. And Brad was like, bro, do you know how hard that is? And I said, you average 25 points a game. That's a 5 point a game gap. You can't make one more 3-pointer and make one more layup. He said, oh, I can do that. And so what I always talk about is being able to kind of reassess the gap and basically make it where it's something that seems a lot more feasible. So give you an example. Let's say somebody out there is needs a new car, and it's a $10,000 down payment, and they only have $2,700 of like liquid money that they feel like it is, I can get rid of that money and it still won't hurt my pockets.
Yeah.
Most people look at that and say, I have to make $10,000. How can I make $10,000? And I would say, no. Listen, you've got $2,700. Which means there is a $7,300 deficit. That's the gap. It's $7,300, which seems like a lot. How am I going to make? Drew, I've never had $10,000 extra money in my bank account. I go, okay, divide that by 52. That's $140 a week. Now let's get even more crafty. Let's divide that by 7. That's $20 a day. My little niece and nephew, 6 and 5, if they went out and did a lemonade stand for 1 hour, they could make more than $20.
Yeah.
So if my nieces and nephews could easily make $20 a day every day for the entire year, then you can do it too. And when they're like, wow, it's only $20 a day, I can do that. Yeah. Well, now it seems realistic. My dad, it could be easily like when I said, hey, Pops, let's just get to the point where we can close that jacket. It might have been a 50-pound, difference between where he was and where he needed to be to even close the jacket. My dad, 50 pounds, bro. Do you know how hard it is to lose 50 pounds? I'm gonna have to starve myself. It's not going to be healthy. I'm not going to have any energy. Pops, can you lose 1 pound this week? Yeah, I can lose 1 pound this week. We'll just do that for 52 weeks. You know what I mean? Now we're 52 pounds down. Now somebody says, well, Drew, I'm not 50 pounds overweight. I'm 25 pounds overweight. Great. A half a pound a week. A half a pound a week. You can't do a half a pound a week? And so that's what I would say. The other thing is I call it reframing. But yes. I would say the big thing that you do is you identify the gap, where you are, where you want to get to. That gap looks big, and then reframe it into, reasonable things that your mind can wrap around. I can do that. And then once you have that belief, then it becomes a lot more obtainable, and then you can actually apply that pressure and energy that's needed to get, to shrink that gap and ultimately become that person that you're after.
That's huge, man. I'm just thinking about now too. We just had this business planning meeting, right? And we're wanting to grow our mortgage production volume and all that. It's like big number for the year, right? Like over $1 billion. I'm going, whoa, chunk that down and, like you said, monthly, weekly, daily, and you start to figure this thing out and start to reverse engineer it like you shared. I hope people are listening are not missing this, because this is actually practical. Whether you're an entrepreneur, you're in sales, you've got a weight loss goal, whatever it is. I love the way you're doing this, because it's so interesting to me always when you break these things down. I love that you break this down in your book, because I think this is going to help people take the steps, actually create the framework. Because I wish I had some of those, because I stumbled for years in so many of these areas to where it's like I was just going at it wrong. It's like, man, I got this massive goal for the year, and then you beat yourself up because you're not there in a couple months, and that cycle's no good. I'm going to shift a little bit though on you. I love the title of the book. Tell me a little bit about where you see people, they're bullshitting themselves today. Where do you see that common thread of like, where are people just, they're missing the mark. They're lying to themselves. They got a bunch of BS happening. Where is that typically happening?
I wrestled with my publisher, my editor, and for instance, the NBA was like, Drew, we heard you have a book coming out. We'd love to help promote it. As soon as I told them the title, they're like, we can't promote the cuss word on our channels. I know that it was going to cost me sales. I did not care. Like I told you earlier, I did not write this book to make money. I wrote this book to help people. And I truly believe that the secret sauce to getting whatever you want in life is to stop bullshitting yourself. I think that most people, if they wrote down a list of why they aren't experiencing whatever they want to experience in life, they'd write down all these justifiable excuses, but they would never write me. And that's the number one thing. I think that you are the reason why you are killing it, or you are the reason why you're not killing it. And so the book framework is pretty cool, which will explain the answer to your question, because you asked, directly, where are people bullshitting yourself? I think that everyone has one or multiple invisible strings that are holding them back. That could be a bad habit that you can't break. That could be a conversation that you're avoiding and afraid to have with somebody that it'll improve your life if you have that conversation. It could be a fear that you're afraid to face. It could be a promise that you keep breaking yourself. It could be a dream that you endlessly delay. But we all have one or multiple invisible strings that are holding us back. And those things are the things that we bullshit. It's the little bad habits that end up, holding us back. It is the conversations that we don't have. It's the people that we don't break free from. It's the toxicity that we allow to remain in our life. It's the bad spending habits, the bad, money-making habits. It's all of those things that are killing us. And it's amazing how many times in my work I have clients that are billionaire entrepreneurs. I have clients that are NBA superstars that are 100 millionaires. And it is amazing how they have the exact same problems that all of us have. People always be like, what shocks you most about these people? And I'm like, nothing. Nothing shocks me, because they're the exact same as us. And in fact, most of the times their problems are just magnified because they're in the spotlight. And they have to put on their actor's mask more than us, because they have to pretend that everything's okay when it isn't okay. And so that's what I hope the goal is for everyone, is I hope that they can finally be proud of who they are. They can finally be proud of what they're doing. They can finally have that to me, the number one thing we should all be doing is trying to obtain inner peace. Inner peace is the ultimate goal. And, I tell people all the time, there are people that have millions of dollars and millions of fans and are not fans of themselves. And, I outlined a story that really woke me up when I was in college and I was training NBA athletes. I remember I got out of a Ferrari and I'm walking up into a penthouse, and the NBA superstar that I was with said, "Man, life isn't fair." And I remember I was like, yeah, life isn't fair. You have hundreds of millions of dollars. You're an NBA all-star. You're living your dream. You're hooking up with the biggest supermodels in the world. Like, that was everything I wanted at that time.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, but you don't understand. Like, I'm miserable. And that's really what got me on this journey of like, you know what? Inner peace is what we're after. And if you have inner peace, it helps drive home external success as well. But it starts internal, because all the external peace or all the external success in the world does not make up for internal, kind of scramble. And so that's what it's about. I mean, you said, what's the things that people are bullshitting? It's the habits. It's the conversations they're avoiding. It's the fears that they're avoiding. It's the promises that they're breaking. It's the dreams that they're delaying. It's all those things bundled up into one.
Dude. Heard one of my friends, Rory Vaden, shared this the other day. He's like, peace is the new profit.
So true.
It's like, man, that is, because you just, everything you shared there, I think those of us have been around the game long enough and you've met enough people that are that successful, you go, they're not all happy. And so that just tells you, the data tells you right there to go, well, that's not the absolute achievement, because you've met enough people, you've worked with them. They have all the money in the world. They have all these things in the world. And what we would think from the outside is success, and they're still miserable and not happy. And as you share that, I hope people are listening to that is, and whatever you're pursuing, make sure it is in alignment, as you've talked about today, those passions of how you actually got into what you've done. I think that's what most people are chasing, other people's definition of success. And so I would love to know one thing with you, is you've been doing this like super cool job, right? So people are looking at that, just kind of transitioning of like NBA skills coach, all these people you've gotten to work with. What's been your fondest or best memory of what you've been able to do over the last 10 plus years?
I have so many, to be honest with you. I was on court with Jayson Tatum when, they won the championship. He ran up, gave his mom a hug, and then he ran over to me. That was awesome. I was on the court when Joel Embiid, got to hold up the MVP trophy. I was actually in his hotel room. It was just us. We have cameras that one day we'll end up sharing, but it was just us in the hotel room. And, when he found out that he was going to be MVP and just start breaking down, like those moments are awesome. But to be honest with you, my favorite moments are when I get to see my nieces and nephews and get to see my friends and stuff, get to like just meet their superstar, like the people that they look up to. I remember when I was younger, I got for my birthday, I'd get one NBA ticket. I'd get an NBA ticket game. And then my Christmas present was the flight to that game. And I'd always fly up to Detroit, Michigan, because that's where my aunt and uncle were. And, then I would stay with them in the Pistons. I'd get to go to a Pistons game versus. So I got to see like young Fro, Kobe, and Shaq. I got to see Michael Jordan play one time. But it was one game a year, and I looked forward to that. And now I'm like, now I get paid to go to NBA games. But more importantly, I get to like bring people and meet their, the people that they look up to and stuff like that. So that's what lights me up now. It lights me up when I have, clients that will just reach out and just like at 3 a.m. and text me like, bro, just sitting here. Thank you so much for all that you've poured into me. And thank you for helping me do this or that on the court. Or other people that, reach out to me and will say, hey, bro, I was literally depressed and you've helped me got past that. Like, so I don't think it's like a trophy. I don't think it's a celebration. I just think it's more so the moments that you have with all these people that really stand out to me, just because that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, the other day, I'm in LA and I got a text message that like, hey, Drew, what do you want? Because, we got the evacuation text. Do you want me to swing by your house? I was out of town and grab your possessions. Like, what do you want me to grab out of your house for you? And it was a weird moment because obviously I was paying attention to what was going on with the fires. I was seeing how close it was getting to my house. And when I got that text, I was holding my phone and I was like, what do I need out of my house? And I remember there was like a moment where I was like, grab cash. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the first thing that goes to your mind. But then I'm like, I don't really need anything. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, there's Joel Embiid gave me an MVP trophy, which was really cool. It can't be replaced. So I was like, grab that, grab some of the game jerseys that like, you can't ever get those memories back because there's certain moments throughout these players' careers. But I was like, I don't really need anything. And that's really when it really gave me like an appreciation for like, we don't need stuff. What we need more memories with the people that we love, the people that we cherish, and be able to put some more smiles on people's faces. And so to be honest with you, I know that people would probably laugh when they say that, like, Drew, you've been able to, I opened up my senior year at Duke. We played at Cameron on ESPN, lost by 1 on a buzzer beater. I played in NCAA tournaments. I won state championships. I've, helped guys win MVPs and scoring titles and assist titles and championship MVPs, gold medals. None of that stuff matters. It's being able to light somebody's face up with a smile, being able to help somebody through depression. Those are the moments that truly stand out for me.
Dude, I love that. What a great way to kind of end the conversation too, of like, I think what you've been able to accomplish, and you're an example for others out there. And I know, the younger athletes, I'll have even our son listen to some of this, because I think just the perspective you shared, and for the parents out there and entrepreneurs, you just look at what you've done in your journey. And I was thinking about that the other day. Is like, what would I do if that was happening? With the fires and everything there. And you're exactly right. My wife and I were talking about, like, it's the people, it's a few memories and things that you can't replace and all that. But too often we have all this stuff, and we put a lot of value on it. So last question as we wrap. What has you most excited about this year and are you most looking forward to in 25?
To be honest with you, I cannot wait for 6 to 9 months from now when I start getting the emails, the DMs, the phone calls, the text messages about people that said, Drew, I actually went through the book, I applied the system, and these are the changes I made. I really can't wait. And like the cool thing about the book, I mentioned this off camera, but like throughout the book, it basically has a bunch of like fill in the gap type of things. So by the time they get done with the book, they actually have a blueprint and an actionable plan so that they can do it. So it's not just a bunch of stories about, hey, this is somebody that succeeded. This is another person that succeeded. It literally talks about people's failures, people's successes, but then everything goes back to the reader. Every single message, it says, here's the message. Here's a story about the message that is a real world example. Here's how to apply it. And then now you go do it. And so that's what it would be. It would be, I cannot wait to hear about the excuses that people have eliminated from their life, no matter how valid or justifiable they seem. I cannot wait to hear about people that stop settling for less than they, are capable of. And they're like, you know what? I'm done settling with good enough because I'm better than good enough. I can't wait for people to make peace with their past so it stops messing up their present and the future. I cannot wait for people to unlock a level of success, both personally and professionally, that they've never had before, whether that's their career, their relationships, their health, their fitness, whatever it is. And then most importantly, I cannot wait for people to obtain that inner peace that, no external validation can ever get to. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. I really am. I cannot wait for the, like some people look forward to like the sales reports. I don't look forward to that. I look forward to like the text message of people like, Drew, I stopped bullshitting myself. Like when I get that, that's when I'm telling you, I want to be synonymous with the name bullshit. Like when people, we had a game yesterday where we were golfing and I had this big jumbo hat, those jumbo hats that you've seen some fans wear. And if you 3-putt or get a triple bogey, you had to wear the hat the next hole. And it was so funny because the cart girl and all the other golfers were dying laughing. They're like, why are you wearing that big hat? I'm like, if you 3-putt or this, you were bullshitting and you got to stop bullshitting. And like, I can't wait till people start calling themselves out on their own bullshit. Like, I cannot wait till, my mom had a text message the other day and I posted it on my Instagram. I screenshot and posted it, but it was funny. She's like, Drew, I woke up this morning. I rolled out of bed. It was snowing out in St. Louis. And all I wanted to do was just cuddle up under my comfortable blanket. And I said, you know what? I got to stop bullshitting myself. And she goes, I got up, I put on my outfit and I went to the gym. And she goes, your book is working. And I was like, I love that. Like that to me is like what I can't wait to hear about all throughout, this year. And so I'm excited. I really do think that this is the first step in people changing their lives, is just eliminating all the things that we talked about, the bad habits, the invisible, things that are holding them back. And so I'm excited to play a small part in their journey and hopefully help them connect to whatever they need to connect with to actually drive the action that they've been avoiding for way too long.
Dude, I love it. And I love it started with your mom and your dad's story, because I can relate to that. Some stories that we've had, and I know the impact it's going to have. So we're going to put the links, guys. Make sure you have the links to go ahead and order, get your copy of the book, buy it for your friends. What a cool gift to send it to somebody. And in and of itself, it might be a gift that you help them and you're kind of the catalyst to help them go through this. I know we're going to order some copies for our team and even go through with my kiddos, because I think the framework to actually take an action is what's so exciting about this book. It's not just the stories and the cool stuff, but I love that you've laid that out. And it's like, here, do the work. Now you have the answers. Now go do the work again. And so
100%.
Drew, thank you, man, for just jamming with us, just being real in this conversation. These always light me up because I can tell how excited you are, but also know the impact on the other side of this is getting people to stop bullshitting themselves and actually move into that best version. So, dude, I appreciate you. And anything we can ever do for you, let us know.
No, I appreciate that. This is fun.
Good. Guys, this has been another episode of Competitive Edge Podcast. So you can tell we bring people on that have a competitive edge. And the goal of this is always about you, the listener. Help you find your competitive edge, whether you've had it before and maybe you lost it or you haven't really uncovered it. And some things Drew shared today, helping you tap into that and find the areas that you're not playing and competing at your best. We want you to do that. And then you can be a better person in the world, serve those around you, the people you love. That's the reason I think God created us with these unique gifts So go out there and serve somebody today. Make sure you take action from this. Let us know if anything has resonated by leaving us a comment. Reviews are always great. We can get this podcast out to more people. We can make a bigger difference together. So until then, guys, go out there and take some action from something you learned today. Share it with a friend. Cheers.